Anyway, good morning, listeners. You're listening to Amar and
Jaff.
live on our weekly radio show. Are we sat in the same car? Because it's almost as if the sun,
Oh, well, the sun is out.
is in the same direction. So today is the warmest day of this year. Appreciate it hasn't been that long, but anyway, each week, Jeff, that's you, isn't it?
Each week we'll bring you some views, news, and one or two clues from the business world.
Yeah, Asian Business Connections aims to connect, support, and promote the Asian and wider communities.
We'll be talking shop quite literally, not just corner shops. Whether you're looking to start a business, have an existing business, or you just want to talk business, we can help.
We can't help. We can't help. Gosh, Jeff, Friday, the 11th, isn't it? Friday the 11th of February, 2022. And this week has been particularly frenetic. I don't think I mentioned last week that I was at an army event.
Right, today?
No, not today. I'm actually at I've come down to the Center for Process Innovation.
Right.
Is in Sedgefield, and they are one of the most innovative places where innovation happens. They were involved in RNA and vaccines, and it's an incredible place in space. So I've come down here in Sedgefield to meet with them and get an official tour and all of that. But last week, Jeff, I'm going to turn my camera off, but you need to keep yours on because we're filming.
Right.
Okay. And only because obviously it's illegal to have a camera on. Actually, I don't know if it is, but I certainly wouldn't.
Well, you're just parked, are you? Or are you going to be driving shortly?
I am going to be driving in a minute, so
I've
got another 5 minutes of driving, so I'm going to turn my camera off.
Okay.
It's not illegal to talk.
No, not at all.
And anyway, I'm going to turn this off now. And there's a lovely picture of
very
moi.
handsome.
And yeah, so I've come down here, but I was on the weekend. I had been invited to the Royal Artillery Reserve's Armed Forces Annual Conference in a place called Lark Hill, Jeff.
Okay, and where is that, Lamar?
It's about a mile away from Stonehenge.
Okay, wow.
Have you ever been to Stonehenge?
No, I haven't.
Do you know where it is in the world?
Not particularly, to be honest. Is it Yorkshire, Midlands? I really actually I don't have.
I wish it was Yorkshire, or I wish it was Midlands. It's it's a place called Salisbury, is what it's called, and it is. So on the Saturday it wasn't too bad because I actually I flew to Southampton.
Oh, really? Wow.
Right. So I flew to Southampton, which is on the bottom end of the country, like real bottom end of the country.
Right on the other end.
Right. So flight was amazing, and I need to recognise and acknowledge that. Logan Air, flying from Newcastle Airport, what a fantastic service. Literally into the airport, onto the plane, and I couldn't believe I got served like a cup of tea and some water. And Logan Air is a Scottish airline, and you either had shortbread biscuit or one of the tonic caramel bars, and and I didn't have to pay for it.
Wow.
I mean, What was all that
The
about?
thing is that not sign of the times, though, Amar? Because normally, though, conventionally, you got all of that. You got a breakfast.
Oh,
You
you
were
used to get
always well looked
everything. You
after.
used to get
Yeah,
everything.
you were
Yeah.
always looked after when you were flying, and it was a given. But then you obviously had these budget airlines, such as
Maybe that's what I'm so
Beevers.
accustomed to. Yeah, maybe that's what I'm accustomed to is like
Well,
even,
yeah, I think so.
yeah.
I mean, it's not the Amar that I know,
I
but
think
maybe
one
it's
of them. Yeah.
huh?
No, I think one of
Um,
them even charges you to go to the toilet now. But
yeah, of course. I mean, they absolutely transformed. I think it's poor. It transformed in a
yeah,
negative way, for as far as I'm concerned. When you can't
yes.
even, you have to pay for every ounce of, luggage that you're carrying on. You've just stripped it down, and I think people, you want to travel, especially by air. Put a limit on the luggage, but not as way that some of these operators are doing. And come on, give us a cup of tea or something. Charge for it, because
Well,
how much is a cup of tea?
well, I just thought it was like anyway, and it was really nice. And I got off the plane and I said, "Thank you for such a wonderful service." And she was really pleasant, and she was like really impressed at the fact that someone had took the time to say thank you. But anyway, I so got down there, got picked up from the airport. It was about a 50-minute drive from the airport to Lark Hill, and Lark Hill has a number of battalions and such like. So a number of regiments, sorry, are based there, all Royal Artillery, and it was their annual conference. And I sort of, was like, oh my gosh, what am I doing here? On a military camp, real traditionally military camp. But what a wonderful experience. And then on the evening, they had a dinner and in the mess and things like that, in the military mess. So I wore my military uniform and joined them as part of the gang. And it was fantastic. And the people there, like, there's the Queen's. So the Queen is the official Captain General of the Royal Artillery.
Okay.
And so it was her Jubilee. So we celebrated all of that. And there was a message there. And the Master Gunner, who's Sir General Andrew, such an interesting guy, made such an effort. And all the brigadiers and everybody else made such a huge effort to welcome me, to involve me, to engage me. I was actually really nervous, Jeff, going, as in just because I hadn't been well, I was slightly anxious, all of that. And plus, you're going onto a military camp. I was sleeping in a military camp. It's like, it's a bit out of my comfort zone. But anyway, I grew. And then the next day, I joined the conference and I closed the conference, and as an employer, as an honorary colonel, and they made such a big fuss of me, and it was just such a lovely experience. And then we left there at 1 o'clock, and the drive took 7 hours.
Oh my gosh! So on the way back, you drove?
Yeah, because the flight. So the conference finished at 1 o'clock, and the return flight wasn't until, because there's only one flight there and one flight back. The return flight wasn't until 7 o'clock.
Okay.
So
wow.
I wasn't gonna sit around. Although in hindsight, I probably could have and just done a little bit of work and got them to drop me off. But anyway, that's fantastic weekend. Horrible journey back, but it was okay. As in, it was just the distance thing, and there's no good way of driving. So it's about an hour and a half from Oxford, I think. So if you've driven to Oxford's about 5.5 hours or something like that. Anyway, it was a long journey, is what it was, Jeff.
Driving's not my forte. I just don't like doing it anymore. You just want to kind of enjoy and travel by train, or preferably train is probably the easiest. It's just the most convenient, isn't it? Train, you've got to check in and get to the airport. You've got to check in. You've got to go out of town because the airport's not really in the city centres, and this, that, and the other. And it takes just a bit longer, doesn't it, to check in and check out and put the luggage through and this, that, and the other.
Actually, it was Jeff. It was all right, to be honest. It was. It wasn't too bad at all. I got dropped off at the airport at sort of 8:30. Actually, it was probably a bit later. It was probably got dropped off at 9:15. Went in. I said, "Do I need to check my bag in?" And they were like, "No." And I took on. And went through, sat down, had a cup of tea, and literally, the flight was at 10 o'clock, so I was like there for it was particularly good.
Good. Well, it's amazing that you're involved with the armed forces and you're getting invited and representing. The business world, the business community, the Asian community, and it's kind of making inroads beyond what most people are able and capable of doing. So it's another.
It's a huge honor. It's a huge honor, and I was like, a real privilege, both from a military person, community point of view, to because I was talking about the fact that I am, they were like, right, well, Amar, clearly you're not in this role because of X, but we, and I said, look, they were like, you're not in this role because of your color, and obviously I'm not, right? I said, but it certainly is a big deal, and we shouldn't lose sight of that. As in, I'm really proud to be the first person of color to be appointed, but not just the first person of color, Jeff, the first non-military person. So the Royal Artillery and the Honourable Artillery Company are the oldest regiments of the army. King George, created them, right? He pulled them together. And for the first time in their hundreds of years of history, have they appointed an honorary colonel who's not been in the army and who's a person of colour.
I mean, that's
how big of a deal is that?
It's huge. And I mean, it's something on lines of getting the CVE and those type of accolades, and maybe it's even more difficult to kind of get into the armed forces as you have done. So it's tremendous credit for the hard work that you put in, but also the foresight that you have and the fact that you're able to benefit them as much as the benefit that you're going to get or we're going to get as a community. The armed forces is equally going to get a big return from the expertise and the contacts that you're able to bring to the fore.
Oh no, I've always been very proud. I mean, it's wonderful that you signed up to the Armed Forces Covenant, which was an incredible achievement in itself. And for me, it's about connecting communities, it's about supporting communities, but more importantly, it's about promoting communities. And all too often, communities see each other in isolation, and they don't recognize the commonality and the common purpose, and we all breathe, we all eat, we all live, we do all of these things as human beings. And we have so much more in common than we have not. Yet we get hung up on what people look like, what their beliefs are, what their behaviors are, rather than actually we're all from Adam and Eve.
Mm. Mm.
It's even sunnier here, Jeff.
I mean, it's lovely weather. It's still a bit chilly though, Amar. I mean, the sun is out and it's beautiful. You just need the sun
no,
to
you're right.
kind of increase the rays a little bit more. So I think yeah, hopefully maybe later on in the day, because it is still kind of reasonably early. So maybe it might get warmer later on in the day.
Yeah. So I'm going to be disappearing in a couple of minutes.
Okay.
And I'm going to hand off to the team there who are going to interrogate you and talk a little bit about ABC and things like that, Jaff. Before I do, I suppose, just to highlight, there's a whole host of things going on right now, from programs of support, from funding, from government initiatives that people need to tap into, people need to be aware of and access. So I think we should explore and explain some of that. But before I hand over to the guys, what's happening with the football, Jeff?
Oh, amazing. Absolutely. Honestly, if you go to the matches, and I think we need to kind of maybe book.
Go to the chairman's suite. Which one for?
Well,
I was looking.
For I think for every single match you can get a hold of any kind of ticket. Beyond the tickets that we have, I think you need to just go and experience it. I can tell you honestly that in all the years I've been to the football, the last match against Everton, honestly, I went home absolutely exhausted because the yelling and the screaming and the intensity, the highs, just being so proud that the football is what it should be, and that feeling and that buzz, people like Bobby Robson understood, that Kevin Keegan understood. That's just back in an abundance. And how Mike Ashley for 14 years owned a football club like Newcastle United, and he created so much divisiveness, and he created such sorrow within a football stadium where everyone should be as they are. I mean, it's not about winning and losing. Of course you want to win, but that excitement that's there at the moment is just incredible. Honestly, I was exhausted after the Everton match because it was just amazing, absolutely amazing. Atmosphere is electric, and hopefully it should be the most intimidating atmosphere for any club in the country. I think the only stadiums that are going to have a better atmosphere than St James's Park, or not even better, that could even compare, is probably Celtic and Liverpool.
Yeah.
Beyond that,
well, I think, having been to and seen them, I genuinely believe that Newcastle United, our fans are the best fans. The atmosphere is incredible, and even if you go to sort of New Camp and certain places like that, it's like it's amazing, the atmosphere at St James's.
Yeah, of course. I mean, there's some great stadiums around the world and some football cities around the world, but I think Newcastle has a football in spirit that can compare against any other city. Even if you think about Naples, where Diego Maradona went, and people were not going to work just to get a glimpse of him if he was in restaurants and hotels and this, that, and the other. I mean, that's the kind of city that Newcastle is. And there's commentators around the country that kind of try and say, oh, well, you're just a northern town or northern city. And I'm thinking, yeah, but we have a football in spirit as good as anywhere else in the world. And I think that's what PIF and the Saudis have seen, and for them to see that spotlight and invest in the company, in every single decision that they're making is just so correct, and hopefully that'll just continue. So let's see where we are in the next few games. Hopefully we'll climb up the table.
Yeah, touch wood.
You better shoot off, and
I've got to shoot off.
Yeah,
I do. So I'm going to introduce the rest of the team. Are you there?
I can see
Hello.
Chris and Dan.
We're here.
Hey,
Morning.
Chris. Dan.
Hey,
Hi there. How are you doing?
Good,
yeah,
good.
great. All right, I'm going to hand off. They're going to talk a bit. They're going to interrogate you, Jeff. Just for the purpose of sort of awareness, Jeff is probably a foremost marketeer, branding, sort of developmental, creative type person. So it would be really helpful to unpick some of the stories behind sort of Spice Cube, Dabbawal, Khai Khai, and the concepts and things like that to help bring to the fore the marketing experience and the branding experience. Jeff, Dan was responsible for brand at New Balance and Clark's and places like that.
Oh, amazing. Excellent.
Global sort of experience, and obviously Chris has incredible experience operationally and things like that, and Ben is a magical marketeer anyway, and Martha is amazing, and I hope I haven't forgotten anyone, but I'm going to disappear now. So until next week, it's goodbye from me, and Jeff, I'll speak to you over the weekend.
Excellent. All right, Amal. Take care.
Take care.
Have a
Bye.
good, have a good day. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Bye. Bye.
Bye-bye. So, Chris, are you who's leading there, Chris or Ben?
I'm
Or
happy
Dan?
to. I'm happy to
I'll let
lead.
you-
I'm happy to lead.
Yeah, go ahead, Chris. Go ahead, Chris.
I've been particularly excited about getting back on the radio again, Jeff. So
Excellent.
but yeah, I didn't realize actually that you were behind Spice Cube. I remember Spice Cube. Was that used to be in the Gate?
Yeah, it was. I think the Gate Leisure Development, it opened in 2002.
Mm-hmm.
And it was actually opened by the biggest landlords in the country. They used to be called Land Securities. They have huge assets around the world. At that time, the asset portfolio was over a couple of billion. Like they own Scotland Yard, Birmingham Bullring, and a lot of high-profile places around the country, like Liverpool one and this, that, and the other. But interestingly, that was their first leisure investment, and they got it completely wrong. They promoted it as a sophisticated leisure quarter, and they tried to get local businesses in who were able to kind of deliver something of high-end quality effectively. So we went, that's what they sold to us, and then we went and put in an upmarket restaurant. And within weeks of opening, it became a very mainstream development. Lloyd's One and others, they decided to change their tactics in terms of who they wanted to let into the development as a tenant, and they didn't get that mix right. So they had a venue which you have a casino, you have a cinema which effectively is targeting families. The likes of Pizza Hut and Frankie and Benny's were there to cater for the families and the cinema. And then you had downstairs, you had all the nightclubs with stag do's and hen do's, and you had under one roof, you had some families bringing in children. You had those on a Saturday night, absolutely hammered and puking up all over the place. You had people that have gone to the casino, whether they win or lose. You have a lot of theatre that comes with that. Those that have lost, they kind of become very upset and they're leaving the development, causing a bit of trouble. So you had a combination of tenants which just was not homogenous, didn't work. We stuck it out there for about 11 years. We had a decent business, but we were always limited to what we can do because of the umbrella brand, The Gate, and we couldn't really attract the profile of customers that we set out to attract because the umbrella brand had changed so much from what they had initially sold to us. It put us in a huge predicament. But at the end, I used that as a way of saying to them that, look, you've missold something to me and you have to let me walk out of my lease, which is what they respectfully did.
Right.
So we moved out. But we had 11 or 12 really good years. It was a lot of highs and lows, but we learned a lot about business being there and watching all these other national operators next to you and how they conduct their operation and stuff. So that was really, really good. It was a learning curve for us the time that we were there.
Yeah. Dan, you were away from the Northeast for a number of years, weren't you? But
Yeah. Sadly, one of my what was the sort of big buffet place that was in that area?
Walkmania? Was it Walkmania, or was it after that? It was
was the one that was Laos in there? No, am I thinking of that?
No.
There was one with all different types of food from all over the world.
There was. God, what was that called? That was it was an Indian operator that had that. I can't remember its name, but that was more recently though. You're talking about, Dan. I think in the last 5 years or so.
But sadly, that was one of the poorest meals that I'd ever have in there. In terms of cold food and just it tasteless and I think sadly margins are probably driving some of the quality down. Because of they've got to hit a certain cost, and the sort of love for it goes out of the window, and it becomes more mass market catering.
Yeah, I think it does. I think it's when operators. I think that's why independents should always do better restaurants than the bigger companies, because when you have the bigger companies, it all becomes, like you said, Dan, it becomes about margins and stuff. And when we're doing business, of course, margins are important, but that doesn't even come into the thought process until later on, because you want to get the product quality right, and then you work on the margins slowly. But you want, if you have to look at the prices, you look at the prices, but you don't move away from the quality. That's always been our philosophy in restaurants, because people come to restaurants to enjoy, to have good food. Maybe there are certain operators that are there as a platform for you just to kind of fulfill that hunger that you may have after a night at the kebab shops. Are you really bothered what you eat in the kebab shops? But even at the kebab shop, you do know where the good kebab shops are, right? You don't really go and chase the bad kebab shops. You kind of ask around, which is the best kebab shop. So quality of food is important.
I think the thing is, Jeff, in terms of the ambiguity that you were missold, in terms of going in there into that place and what it became, it kind of feels like one of these age-old disappointing strategies that people had in their minds, but they couldn't fulfill. And it sort of just came over time that it didn't become the place that you were expecting. And it's dealing with ambiguity. It's how do you do that?
Yeah, I mean, you see, even the biggest, richest companies, they can make huge catastrophic mistakes. And I think their mistake was that if, let's say that, Dan, you're opening a business and you're going into Northampton, I think if you're making that kind of an investment, and they made an investment of, I don't know how many million, 75 million pounds or something in a city, and if you do it based on the statistics that your statisticians in the property department give you, it's fine. But if you don't go and seek local knowledge, and you don't go into that city and go and spend some time there, speak to the locals, get an understanding of the local city and their needs. It's, for example, when Sir John Hall opened Metro Centre, I think he knew what the Geordies' mindsets were. And that is like critical marketing, isn't it? It's critical to the success of any development. But I think Land Securities, they didn't have a clue, because my question to them was, well, you're trying to open a sophisticated leisure development and you're right near the big market. And the clientele in the big market is distinctly different to what you're going for. How are you going to stop that? And they gave me a marketeering answer, not an honest answer. It was all about, oh, that's a brilliant question that you've asked. And because we're such a high-end development, they're going to feel uncomfortable to come into this development. And we're going to have a very high service charge because we're going to have lots of men to man the type of people that come into this development. And it was a load of nonsense, because, on day two, the service charge, you can't stop people coming into a leisure development of that size. So the number one mistake was they didn't get the local knowledge. They just looked at things from London, and they went into a field that wasn't their expertise, and they just couldn't pull it off.
Yeah.
So that's what they got wrong, and we're left with a headache where if they wanted to turn the screw and say to me that I'm sorry, but you signed the lease on the dotted line, we don't care how the gate has evolved and changed, you'll still have to stay here for the next 25 years. They could have done that, but we had a strong argument, and the ownership changed on 3-4 occasions. And do you know who it's owned by? I don't know if it's still the case. It was owned by the Queen.
Wow.
Really?
The Queen has a property. The Queen has the Queen's estate owned the gate, and they had to make decisions that were fair. Because if they didn't, it wouldn't represent the company too well. So that's why maybe it helped us in many ways to get out of there. But we learned a lot about positioning, about marketing, about branding. So it was a great experience, and we learned what not to do as well. So
I think. Go on, sorry, Chris. Go on, mate.
No, I was just going to say you talked about local knowledge and that kind of thing, and obviously you're in the northeast, so you have that insight. But what about bringing to market something that is a bit unique and different? So like Dabbawal, Khai Khai both feel like they have set a stall out that's slightly apart from your sort of run-of-the-mill Indian restaurant. How much of the local knowledge sort of fed into that, and how much of it is sort of giving people what they don't necessarily know that they want, but is just great?
I think obviously because we're in the city we've been in restaurants in Newcastle for 53 years now, because my dad started in 1969. Oh. So the thing that we always have done and tried to do is, because we love Newcastle as a city. If I answer that question, I'll give you I'll tell you the story of Khai Khai. So I wrote 4 emails to a Michelin star chef. He's called Alfred Prasad, based in London. He worked in Mayfair. He got his Michelin in a Mayfair restaurant called Tamarind. If you ever go to London, go and see these places. I mean, they're like brilliant restaurants. So that was a Michelin star for a good decade or so. So I sent him 4 emails and I said that, look, I'm looking at a project in Newcastle upon Tyne, and would love to sit and talk to you because I want someone to help us develop the menu and the concepts. And they didn't reply to any emails. So one day I was just sat there and something struck in my head, and I said, okay, hold on. I got a bit knocked, and I sent them an email and I said, hold on. You big chefs have got a responsibility not just to keep yourselves in London and Doha and Delhi and work for Gleneagles and work for Lord's Cricket Ground, because I understand that they're all kind of big cities and you've got a certain type of clientele. But I strongly feel that my city, Newcastle upon Tyne, is ready for some serious premium cuisine, and you have to really stretch your wings, mate. And then they reacted to that, and then they got in touch with me. And I said, oh, hold on, this guy, let's see who this kid is about. So I then went to meet him in London, and I told him what my ideas were, my vision was for Khai Khai, and he said that, look, give me a week or so, and I'll get back in touch with you. So he went away, thought about it, spoke to his team, because you got to imagine, if someone like Gordon Ramsay wants to put his name to a restaurant, his whole name is on the line, his image is on the line, his brand is on the line, his reputation is on the line. So there's a lot of things that they need to think about. So he went away and he said, look, I want to come to Newcastle, and I want to see the restaurant, I want to see the location, I want to see the city. So we walked around the city, and I think he was blown away by the city, because he didn't expect something, a city like Newcastle with everything that it's had, because the physical city of Newcastle is just a beautiful city. Mm-hmm. You got the bridges, you got the architecture. It's an amazing size. The traffic is not too crazy. The station is good. The people are lovely. And then it was me telling him that, a premium concept restaurant. Is that ready? Something that would work in Mayfair, would it work in Newcastle, was effectively the question that we had in our minds. And we felt that we, as a city, when you have a look at it and what it is and the type of people here and the type of businesses that are here and the profile of people and the money that they have and this, that and the other, I knew in my heart that Newcastle had enough foodies for a premium restaurant to work. Mm-hmm. So we basically, even in the pandemic, we never swayed away from what we wanted to achieve, which was to do something in the city of Newcastle that you could just pick up, put it in Mayfair, and it would work equally as well. And that's what we did, and we brought that to life and opened it right in the heart of the pandemic in 2020, December the 4th. And that's the week when we thought they were going to let restaurants reopen, and they didn't. So we opened Khai Khai as a takeaway. And it got off to a like unbelievable start, because whilst everyone was likes of our friends and lovely neighbors such as, you know, Dobson and Farnell and House of Tides and Cafe 21, and they were all closed and open just on the weekend, right? So all I did was I opened every day, day and night, and I put an A board on my shoulder, stuck it near the river, because, and then I put, you can have pan-fried sea bass and gunpowder chips and wraps, homemade, like fresh wraps. And honestly, we had queues outside because no one else was open to do takeaways. And we launched a new restaurant as a takeaway just by putting an A board on the river. And I'm thinking to myself, my God, am I that clever, or is everyone else kind of just missing something? Because I can't be that clever just to think I'm going to put an A board on near the river and sell some gunpowder and chips, right? But hey, if that's a genius, I'll
easier
take
than
that,
you
okay?
think. Yeah.
So yeah, I think what we try to do, Chris, is look, if I wasn't from Newcastle, the kind of investments that I've done, they wouldn't really happen, because someone said, so please open one of these in Edinburgh and please open one of these in Manchester. I was like, no, because you don't understand the time, effort and energy and the pain that we have to go through to open these restaurants, and they're only here because it's our home. You know, and if you think about it from my work life balance perspective, I mean, I just have to travel 5 minutes to work. I don't have to do a 45 minutes commute. I mean, the lifestyle benefit of having businesses so close to where I live and in my city is just amazing. And we've done businesses afar, but look, it's for the lifestyle gain. It's just not necessary. So going back, that's the Khai Khai story. And similarly with Dabbawal, I'm not going to spend too much time on Dabbawal. We were the first operator to create a street food concept in the Indian restaurant sector in the whole of the UK in 2008. And that was all about changing the perceptions of the cuisine that you would eat in Indian restaurants. So ordinarily, let's say 15 years ago, you might go into a restaurant and you might order can have onion bhaji, chicken madras and pulao rice. Everyone's done that. That's just standard. But I wanted you to have more flavors, rustic food, food that you would eat at home, and have like a sweet potato chat with a bell-puri vegetable samosa chat, and maybe a Malabar king prawns, which is an authentic dish from the region of South India, Kerala, and you share that and you enjoy lots of different flavors. And that was the small plate idea that we brought to the fore. If you look at all the restaurants today, small plates is everywhere, but we've been doing that since 2008. So there's certain things that we've just felt that we know where to, you have to position your product where it's aspirational, but within touching distance, and it's not too far. Like, for example, if I had, and we've done these mistakes in the past, if I had oxtail and salmon, a combo of dish on the menu, what is that? It's too far away from that comfort zone. So it's about pushing people's comfort zone and just tickling their kind of senses and pushing them a little bit further than what they're comfortable with. But then you have to do something amazing that blows them away. And then that's the trick, to be able to achieve a product that's aspirational that people will connect to.
So Jeff, can I just ask you just quickly, because there's one thing that I think is hugely, like, you know, with all of your endeavors, is that you're talking about the food a lot, right? Which is like, that's, you know, it is the product, but actually the experience for the customer in these restaurants, you know, that as much as the menu's amazing, that train of thought to get to that place and think about the environment and the music and the smell and who's allowed in and who's not, and what, you know, all these sorts of things, like, kind of, they generate that experience. And I think even more so now than ever, because of the pandemic, people are super hungry for really great experiences.
Yeah. I think it's an excellent point that you've made, Dan, and that when you sit down, so we call that when we're creating the concept, we look at it. We call that the total product offer. So you look at the whole encompassing offer that you're going to have, and from the comfortability of the seats, you look at the chairs and how long do you want people to feel comfortable in that chair? Do you know that you can buy chairs that they give you a 2-hour plus comfort, or they give you a 45-minute comfort? So when you go to McDonald's and stuff, you don't want to sit there for 2 hours, do you? You just want to sit there for 25 minutes, 30 minutes.
Yep.
And you're not going to find a comfortable chair in McDonald's, because that's part of the design. That's part of the brief. So we wanted people to sit around about 2 to 2.5 hours comfortably. So the booths that you design and you know, everything is all kind of connected. But ultimately, beyond the experience, we feel that we've come up with something a little bit further than that. And that's to, yes, so you have great food, excellent service, the ambience, which is effectively the environment of the restaurant, to create that experience. But the next level that we feel that we want people to leave with is a memory. So that memory sticks with them, and people that don't come into the city, or they're not from Newcastle, we want them to go away and say, oh my God, well, I remember I went to this amazing place in Newcastle, and it was called this, and we had this, and we had this. I'll give you a little example of that. One day we have a booth for 6 people, and there's 11 people that turned up, and I said, oh, I'm sorry, but our numbers have gone up. We don't have any other tables. So the manager said to us, look, what shall we do? I said to them, put all 11, squeeze them all in. And I said, boss, are you sure? Because it's going to be uncomfortable. I said, look, it's not going to be uncomfortable, because they've come to us and their numbers have gone up. So if you just squeeze them all together, what's going to happen is they're going to like really enjoy the squishiness, because, you know, someone's armpit on top of the other, but that's going to give them that one-off memory that they're never going to get ever again. So just make sure that the service and the food is amazing, and then tell me how they feel at the end. And honestly, they just left with it, because imagine how many times are you going to go to a restaurant where there's going to be 11 people on a table for 6, and if you can fit in then and eat comfortably and you enjoy it, obviously it adds more to the memory. And
it's the kind of story that you tell people, isn't it, when you go back home? It's the kind of story you'd recount back to people, I think, that kind of thing.
And I think that's the word of mouth marketing, Jaff, you know, in terms of, like you just said, telling people. There's no greater achievement than reaching that pinnacle of word of mouth, because there's an immediate trust factor. If you're speaking to a friend and they're recommending something, it's, you know, that's hugely beneficial.
I'll tell you what I found really unique as well in Khai Khai, Jeff, because obviously I was in with Amar and a couple of others before Christmas, and it's interesting you talk about memory, because like actually the sense that's most closely linked to memory is smell. And Khai Khai's got a really unique like smell in the restaurant itself, due to the Josper ovens and the smoke and all that kind of stuff. And I think that was one of the main things that I took away. And we had so much food that I ended up taking some home and sharing it with my wife the next day. But like that scent of the food came back and almost sort of like rekindled the memory of the experience itself of being in the restaurant. How conscious are you of that with Khai Khai in terms of the experience? I
mean, obviously the smells are so important for Indian cuisine, but it's important that you don't have a stale smell. And that's kind of through experience. So we don't have, you know, when you go to the restaurants, they have carpets and they have cloths, chairs, and they have curtains. You're never going to have a fresh smell in those restaurants. So people, they may not realize when you go to certain restaurants, the smell is not a fresh smell, right? It's because of, well, you're not going to clean your carpet. You're going to hoover it every day, but you're not going to wash it every day. So there's always going to be certain smells that are not correct for that environment. And And we've learned and understood that when you work with top designers, they kind of share all this experience. It all goes back to Dan's point about their experience, because you have to think about everything holistically. So the smells come into it, and to get that fresh smell, just the cooking smell, which will come and it'll go, but you don't want the cooking smell to stay. And if it stays, it's going to become a stale smell. So again, that's all planned from having tiles and having leathers and having no curtains, and then releasing these jospers and having an open kitchen, so that the smell can transfer. But you don't want it to transfer as much as you would in the kitchen, because it's going to be uncomfortable. So it's getting that level right. And you sometimes dream about getting the levels right, but you don't know until you put the mechanical engines on and see that, oh yeah, is it doing everything that I really dreamed and hoped for it to do? And is the extraction levels and the fresh air input, are they balanced? Are they correct? And again, the only way of getting those right is if you work with the best people, you have a better chance, because they understand what you're trying to achieve, and they think a bit outside the box, and they deliver a better quality product. So you're dependent on a lot of, your business associates and people that have been involved in the project, for them to understand what you're looking to create at the end, because they don't see it. They just see the building coming together, but they don't see your grand vision. But it's important that you share as much of that as possible, so that they know that they have to deliver something on a really, really high level product. So I guess, Chris, that's something, again, that's really, really important, and we have thought that through. And it's really great that you've noticed things like that, because it just means that the thought process that we went through is we're doing something right anyway, and for you to be able to come up with that and mention that. So that's really, really good of you.
Jeff, is there stuff that, like, I think to get to the places that you've got and then to be leaving the memories is great, but do you feel like a sense of, I guess what can only be described as maybe like a slight discomfort with having to innovate, to keep fresh and to keep ahead and to move yourself and to look at the calendar and look at the external environment and what's happening in politics? How do you sort of keep yourself on your toes and pushing forward?
We have to keep ourselves on our toes, because Dabbawal, not so much Khai Khai. Dabbawal is probably the most copied restaurant, definitely in the northeast of England. I mean, last year we spent probably, as a minimum, I don't have the figures in front of me, but as a minimum, we spent £25,000 in legal fees battling people that keep on copying names and copying ideas. And it's been horrendous, especially in the pandemic. There was just, we have a Dabba box, which is a trademark, which is basically we do, it was in Phoenix, we do wraps in this Dabba box. And someone in Ireland just replicated the Dabba box in its entirety. People are opening restaurants called, we took on some big guys in London. They wanted to open a restaurant called Dabbawal. I've got the trademark for it. They weren't having it. They offered me £160,000 for the name, and I didn't give it away for them. I didn't give it to them. They said to me, "How much do you want then?" I said, "Look, I want to feel like a footballer." And they said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Do you know those commentators? Do you know the commentators when they say that, oh well, he's not playing the same because his head's been turned because of this huge offer from another club?" I said, "You make me feel like that, you're gonna have a deal." but they didn't make me feel like that. So I said, "No, I'm not doing a deal." So basically, there is lots of people that copy, and sometimes you get frustrated. But we are original people. We do everything from scratch. I have a business development team, Jane Matthews, Ola, Graziella. We all do everything from scratch. All of our stories are done from scratch. It takes a huge amount of time. But if we didn't do it from scratch and we were copying, it would be soul destroying for us. So we get the buzz by innovating from scratch and doing original work. That really is really important to our mindset and our motivation levels. We will never, ever, ever, we might get inspiration from other people, but we'll never, ever cut and paste anything, because that would do injustice to our creative minds that we have. And I can't go and set that example, because the team around us, they just love. I mean, it's not easy when you have to do the hard grind and that research and that research and that research, but it's really fulfilling at the end. And when you then get recognized, and Khai Khai's won best restaurant concept in the whole of the UK. Dabbawal has been recognized nationally on many occasions. So then you get that fulfillment that, okay, there you are, guys. You know, we've done something, and it's unique, and we've been on the journey, and we've been recognized for all that effort. So I really love that's a mentality that we have. But we're a team, and I get real happiness from taking our team and going on journeys with them, whether we're going to amazing restaurants around the country just with them, so that we can go and enjoy our I guess enjoy some success and go and just keep on motivating by going around the countries and dining in other restaurants and seeing different things and working with top professionals. It's what probably keeps us going.
It's great. I mean, it's a really great answer to the question, because, you know, with a lot of these things, you just don't see the mechanics of what goes on behind the scenes. And
yeah,
you know, I would expect there to be a lot of blood, sweat, and tears around
of course,
just getting things to this point.
Dan, if you went onto the Khai Khai website and read that story, right, for that story to come to fruition, Jane, she did a good 3 months, 13 weeks of solid work on the subcontinent and the story of the grandmother and you know, how their cooking techniques and lots and lots of amazing things. And that story, my goodness, I mean, it went to so many copywriters. It went to Australia and back. That's a story for another day. But we couldn't get it right. We couldn't get it right. It's really intricate. It reads now and it feels really simple. But honestly, to do these things originally, it takes a lot of work. So, but yeah, and that's the kind of effort that's involved just to create a page of A4 on the story. But that becomes your concept. That becomes everything moving forward. So original work is what is so critical for us. It's what gives us the buzz, and that's how we stay ahead. Because, you know, these big companies, they cannot do the original work that we do because they don't have the passion for it. They can take concepts. We get lots of people stealing concepts. Well, that's all they do is wait for the little operators like us, make something work. They come, analyze, and then they get their big money men to come and replicate this. Not as good, but it works mechanically for the mainstream market. But those restaurants, you know, we're never fearful of the big chains because they can't do what we do. No, they'll never be able to do restaurants as good as what the independents can do it.
I think that's
yeah.
I was going to say you've gone full circle, Jaff, just in terms of, you know, we started at the gate and kind of in that area, and it feels like you found your home in terms of, you know, the things that you've been aspiring for that you've reached and made a success of, and that must feel really wholesome and like invigorating, you know.
I think you know, Dan, in 2002 I was in awe of these chains. I was like, oh my god, I'm next to Frankie and Benny's. Oh my god, I'm next to Nando's is a brilliant brand. I'm next to Pizza Hut. And I was thinking, but then I thought to myself, hold on, these restaurants are rubbish. Look, let's not disrespect them. Those restaurants, they just lack the passion. They lack real food quality. They lack making the food. They don't make the food in those restaurants.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have chefs. They have cooks. They just have the best reheating tools in the game to reheat their burgers and reheat the buns that they're buying from their manufacturers. So we cook from scratch, from the onion up, and that's why our food is not processed. It's all like the high quality food done by skilled chefs. And that's why I say any independence that you should have all that confidence in your heart that if you do want to set up business and you do it the right way, you're always going to have an advantage. Doesn't matter how big those big chains are and how many chains that they have around the country, because you can blow them, or we can blow them out the water every single time. Just focus on quality, because they can never deliver the quality that we can do as independents. It's impossible.
Brilliant. Good stuff. some great insight there, Jaff. Really good. And like I say, I was in Khai Khai just before Christmas, and if I can get a table, I'm coming back. So yeah.
Well,
yeah, so I guess just a quick mention that we've got the ABC, Asian Business Connections Curry Club, coming up next at the end of March. Ben, I think, am I right in saying?
That's right, yes, Thursday the 31st of March.
Brilliant. And if you log on to the ABC website, you can sign up there. We're expecting a good turnout, and the location will be confirmed ASAP on that, I think.
That's right, yes.
Great stuff. But excellent. Well, brilliant to speak to you this morning, Jaff. Really good insight into things. Hope you have a great weekend, and I assume you'll be busy on Monday, will you? It's Valentine's.
Yeah, yes, it is. It is busy on Valentine's Day, but it's all twos, so you lose capacity. All the table for fours, you got two people on them. But anyway, it's what it is.
Yeah.
For busy restaurants, it's probably it's a Monday, which is going to be good anyway. Looking forward to making people's nights and rumble and yeah, hopefully bring some more memories on that day. But it's really lovely to speak to all of you, and hopefully we'll catch up soon in person when we can. Maybe we can do some lunch or something in the very near future together.
Sounds great.
That's amazing. Thank you, Jaff.
Brilliant.
Time, mate.
Brilliant. Thank you. Nice
Thanks
to
so
talk
much,
to you.
Jaff.
Take care.
Great weekend.
Bye bye.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Take care.